Good morning and welcome to my channel. My name is Christina and I like to colour. Welcome to my messy desk. I have pencils everywhere because I'm still colouring a page in this. I just recently did Dark Fairytales, Kerby Rosanes. I did the boy who had an eating match with a troll. And this is it here. I have started that side because that is the next part that I'm doing. I wanted to mainly focus on his face because faces make me happy and I just wanted to do his face. So his face it was. This is done, but not with the... It took me a few hours to do this, but I didn't spend as much time doing detail on this than I did with this. So I used mainly Luminance pencils. Why? Because I wanted to, there's some Prismacolor in there and a Black Widow, and I believe that is all, and a white gel pen. And this eraser, I have a little skinny thing, if you compare it to this one. This one's a chunky one, that one's a skinny one. This is the one that I was using just to make the finer details. But yeah, this is it. So I should have this side done in the next day or two, and I'll get that to you. Hello to everyone on this lovely end of February, almost the beginning of autumn, which is great. I am over the hot weather. I'm over it. I am done sweating. I am ready for jumpers and long pants, even though in Queensland we don't really need that very much, but I'm ready for it anyway. I decided to do Dark Fairytales, Kerby Rosanes. I forget how I say it. Kerby's Dark Fairytales. This is the ogre and the boy. I can't remember the name of the story. I will look at it in a minute and find out. I got interested in this one because it was a face and I just felt like doing a face because faces are the reason why I got into painting and colouring. I'm not huge on landscapes and things like that. I love faces and the realism and you know, just the intricacies of a face. I decided to use Luminance mainly on this one for no particular reason other than the fact that I have them and I just wanted to use them. So to begin with, I start doing the normal side of the face, but then I decide to just do the ogre, and the normal side of the face will be finished in part 2 of this. So I chose Butternut, Luminance Butternut, because it is similar to cream and I just wanted a light base on the human side of the thing, you know what I mean, the human side of the page. This is very light pressure. I don't want to put much on here at all, and it really doesn't matter if you can see the paper through it. It doesn't matter if you're scribbling. It does not need to be perfect, this one. It is just the very base layer of what is going to be the bottom of quite a few layers. Now, in case you don't know, most of the time I will put the name of the pencil in front of it. So like here I have Luminance Butternut, so that means it's Caran d'Ache Luminance. If it's Prismacolor, I don't put Prismacolor in front of it. I just put the color. So I'll just put Tuscan Red or whatever. I won't put Prismacolor. And if I'm using a black, like even if I'm using a black in Luminance or whatever, unless I specifically think that black is the most important black ever and you need to use that brand, I usually just put black. I don't put what brand I'm using, even if I'm using a Luminance or whatever. So that is how I go about and do all of these. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this. And now onto the ogre or the orc or whatever. I think he's an ogre. I call him an ogre. Onto the ogre, which is the main focus of this page and the part that I really enjoyed doing. The background was, just kind of white noise to me, to be honest. I wasn't really that interested in it. If I could have just done the face, I would have just done the face, but I thought I should do the background as well. So the base of this one is going to be a spring green and exactly the same as the left hand side there. You don't want to do a great deal of pressure, and it doesn't matter if you can see the lines, the direction of your strokes and things like that. It really doesn't matter because there is going to be a lot of layers on this. Now, why did I choose spring green? Well, I didn't want him to be a really nice, so this is just the basis. The spring green is barely going to be seen. It's going to be seen just on the highlights. And I wanted the ogre to be an ugly green. I didn't want him to be a nice green, or her, whatever he is. I don't know. Him. He's a him. I didn't want him to be a nice green. I wanted it to be an ugly green. So Luminance Spring Green is a good highlight for the image I had in my mind. You know how when you see a picture and you think, yep, that's how I'm going to color it. And yeah, that's how I go from there. And that's how I picked the spring green. 'If you only have Prismacolor, Prismacolor Chartreuse is a good color to substitute for this spring green. They are both very similar colors. I think the Chartreuse is just a little bit more yellowy, a little bit more brighter, which it doesn't matter because I do end up putting a bit of yellow onto his highlights anyway. So if you don't have luminance, just about every single color I use here can be substituted with Prismacolor. 95% of the time, as long as I'm paying attention, I try to always color in the direction of the way that whatever it is that I'm coloring goes. So this part of his skin here goes towards, either goes from left to right or right to left. It doesn't really matter there. But yeah, I'm not going to go the complete wrong way. I try not to anyway. Sometimes I do. When I'm in my own little world, I'll be coloring and it's like, oh, oops. But yeah, I always try to color in the direction that the skin or the hair or the flower or whatever is going. And the first layer is just about done. No, it is done. It is done. And now we have 2,000 more layers left. This is burnt ochre, 10%. I really like Caran d'Ache's. They have burnt ochre, 10%, burnt sienna, 10%. Don't quote me on that. I know they have a few that, 10 and 30 and 60%. And I really like them, and they are amazing for skin tones. So I picked burnt ochre, 10%, to do the mid-tones. So it's more than the shadows, but less than the butternut. Was it butternut? I keep wanting to say squash. Butternut, that was the base. So this is going to go over all of the lines that are for shadows and more. And this is still a very light layer, and I'm still trying my best to concentrate and go in the direction of the skin. Like I said, sometimes I falter and I'll be listening to something and not paying attention to what I'm coloring. And I know I say this all the time, but as you watch the layers build up, you can see the face or whatever it is you're coloring come to life. If you just stop at 2 or 3 layers, it seems flat, in my opinion. Yeah, so I like to do quite a few layers, and I'll go over and do the same thing over and over again, and then go over and get the shadows. Now I picked green ochre with Luminance, and I got to admit, I was looking at it and thinking, this is a really, no offense, green ochre, it's a really ugly color. I'm more of a, nice color type person, but it's an ugly color, and I thought, no, that's the color that I want him to be. So for the ogre, his midtones are going to be green ochre, and I'm still using light pressure and so just following the same guidelines as I did with the left side of the face. So all the shadows are going to be colored in green ochre and more. Just leave the highlights where you think the brightest highlights are going to be, because I want him to be this ugly color. And no offense if you like green ochre, I actually like it too. It makes a really ugly ochre. So ochre, really ugly ogre, and it gave me what I wanted. So I don't mean it's a horrible color and never use it. I mean it makes for an ugly ogre. My whole goal on this ogre was to make very strong definitions between the dark and the light. So I do make sure to color in all of the creases and start to get the lines and the definition of the shadows in there. And back to the human side, I decided to do burnt ochre 50%. Like I said, Luminance have some amazing, percentages in their ochres and their siennas and other ones. Ugh, brain fart, I just can't think. Which is nothing new, I can never think. This is for the darker, not the darker, this is for the shadows. So it's going to be less than what I just did with the burnt ochre 10%, but yes, that's it. It's not more than anything right now because I haven't done the shadows, have I? No, so it's going to be less than, so it's going to be the shadows there that Kerby has already put in for you very graciously. Thank you very much, Mr. Kerby. And I know I say this all the time, but this is light pressure as well. I very rarely do heavy pressure until I get to the very dark shadows at the very end, which when I want to kind of burnish them in and get those shadows in, I usually will use very light pressure. Even just with these little bit of shadows on that face on the left, you can start to see the definition of the face show. And I just love watching the way faces come together. For the darkest green on the ochre, I decided to use dark sap green. Now, I was a little dubious about using this one because it doesn't quite match with the green ochre, but once I get everything together, I think it actually turns out quite well. I was, questioning my choices as I was coloring this. I thought, no, I'll just keep going and see what happens. And I'm glad I did keep going. And yeah, so this is going to be still relatively light pressure, but a little firmer than what I have been doing previously. So it's probably not quite medium pressure, but more than light pressure, if you know what I mean. And around this eyes always have extremely dark shadows. I don't know if you pay attention to that, but when you color in a lot of eyes, you'll notice that it's dark in a lot of spots. So I tend to do a little bit heavier pressure around the eye just because there's not much else I'm going to put in there. It's going to be dark. And I switched to green ochre here in a minute just to make sure that I like the way that these two colours are blending together. So I just go over the sap green with the green ochre just to see if I like it and make a decision from there. I mean, I'm pretty much, no, I still erase it a little bit and then decide to go with it again. So here I have erased it and I decide, no, I'm going to go with the sap green. I like the way it looks and I commit to the sap green or the dark sap green. And so all of the darker, like darkest shadows are going to be sap green. I really spent my time doing his face and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I spent over 10 hours on this page. The background probably was a couple of hours, but I just fall in love and go really slow and try to focus on the details when I'm doing a face because I just love it so much and I've missed it. And so, yeah, I really go slow and focus on the intricate details of this. And as usual for me, unless otherwise indicated, the light source is coming from the top left. So his shadows on his face he's going to have more shadows on the right side of his face than he would on the left hand side of his face. So that is how I work. So inevitably the right side of his face there will get more shadows as I go along. Now this ogre has a lot of creases, which I loved because it gives him so much character, but it does take a little while to get his shadows in there. But if you just, I don't know, just enjoy it. I just love doing faces, especially ugly faces. This is going to come out, but I really like doing faces that have a lot of, different things on them. So a smooth baby face doesn't interest me as much as a really old person's wrinkly face does. And I grab a Black Widow leaf green because Luminance and Prismacolor and yeah, whoever I looked, I can't remember which ones I looked at, didn't have a green that would match with the green ochre and the dark sap green. And this was the best match that I could find to be kind of a mid tone, if you know what I mean. So the more colors I have in the face, the better they look. Obviously, depending on the colors and how you color it in. But this one here is designed to go over the dark sap green and kind of blend it into the green ochre. And see how his face is just coming together when you're adding all these different colors and the different shadows and midtones and highlights. And the face just comes together and it looks really good. Well, I hope it does anyway. Um, and with this one, it's still light pressure. I'm still doing my best to remember to color in the direction of the skin. A nose generally has a highlight right on the tip and no, the bridge. Is it the bridge? Right on the long bit, the long pointy bit that pokes out. It's typically highlighted there, so that's why I haven't colored over that. And it will usually have a darker shadow on the side where the light isn't coming from. So on the ogre's side, the shadow will be darker on the nose than it will on the boy's side. I mean, even if you look at it now, the ogre's face, you can see it coming together and see how much better it looks than with just two colors or two or three colors and two or three layers. It just comes together and starts to look really good, and that is why I just love faces. And what happens when we color over these shadows with a lighter color? We lose our shadows. So the whole fight in coloring is keeping your highlights and keeping your shadows. That's the whole fight. It's just a constant battle. And so I'm going over all of the shadows again with the dark sap green. I'm using medium pressure here because this is the shadows and I want them to stick, because you kind of get frustrated that they just keep disappearing. So I'm starting to use medium pressure here where the shadows are. Doesn't he just look absolutely gorgeous? I just I just love how he comes together. I really, really do. And I hope I can do the same on the left-hand side. Now I have lost my ugly colour, the green ochre, so I want to go back over and get the ugly back into the ochre. Pressure is starting to get a little bit heavier, so probably medium pressure, and always trying to colour in the direction of the skin. The further on in the layers you get, the more important it is. You can see his ugly is coming back now with that horrible green, and he's starting to get some character into him. I could have spent another 10 more hours colouring him in, but I knew I had the background to do. But I would have loved to have just sat there and just focused on the face. And I might do that on the left-hand side. I just may not colour in the background, and I may just do the face and see how that is. But the OCD in me will be like, no, you have to finish the page, and then I'll get annoyed because it just takes so long to do all those little bits and bobs. And on the ogre's side, I was having trouble figuring out what was what, so I just guessed. But I figured out most of the stuff on the ogre's side is meat, and most of the stuff on the boys' side seems to be fruit and vegetables. You'll have to excuse me. I think I am getting something. I don't know what. My throat is not sore, but it's I have to swallow all the time. No, I mean, I know. Oh my God, I have to swallow. I know. No, you know, it feels a little scratchy, but not quite scratchy. And my sons have been sick, spreading their germs all over the place. So, yeah, if I sound a little funny or a little husky or whatever, it could be that. So my whole goal is to just build up the layers and to make him look absolutely amazing, which he is starting to do. As you add the layers, you watch and you just see him come together. Like sometimes I'll look and I think that doesn't look good, and then I will look at the video that I've done from the very beginning and I think, oh wow, he's come so far and he does look good, he just doesn't look finished. And now on to Luminance Dark Flesh 5%. This is another good colour that Luminance have that I quite like. This is for the shadows mainly, just for the darker shadows. I'm not going to focus too much, I'm not going to explain too much on the face side because I'm pretty sure this is where I stop on the face side and just focus on the ogre. So in the part 2 of this, I will go over how I do everything on the face. and a raw umber for the darkest shadows on the face. This is the last colour that I do on the face. I'm pretty sure of that. 95% sure of that. And this is light pressure. I don't want to get the darks too dark to begin with, because I just want to double check that I've got the shadows where I want them and they look all right as shadows. Because as soon as I start to get heavy pressure, it makes it harder to erase. And now back to what I'll call the mid-tone Black Widow. Black Widow leaf green. Just going over exactly the same as what I did before. I'm using medium pressure, trying to blend everything together. And now green ochre again, just to go back over that leaf green and the dark sap green in order to blend everything together and work it all and make it smooth. And as usual, I have lost my shadows again. And now that I am relatively happy with where I have positioned most of my shadows, I can confidently go in and do heavier pressure. So it's not quite burnishing, I'm not going to do that. It's just heavier than medium because I want those shadows in there and I want them to stay. Now I know this is a story, I've never heard it before, but of an ogre and a boy. So a boy who challenges an ogre to an eating competition and tricks him by pretending to squeeze something out of a rock or something. I don't know. I've never heard that story before. That's not one of my fairy tales that I've heard. I've heard the usual ones, Red Riding Hood, Three Little Pigs, things like that. So because I like faces and because I wanted to, and this is my page, I will be doing this page like the boy is turning into the ogre. So when I color the boy's side, he will have tinges of green as if he's turning into an ogre, and he's probably going to have the same color eye as the ogre as well. That's just because that's just how I wanted to do this page. I didn't see it as an eating contest. I saw it as two sides of one person. And with this, you can see that the extra layers of shadows is needed because every time you go over it with something else, you lose the shadows. And you need the shadows, as I'm finding out going back looking through some of the colorings I've done. I keep losing my shadows. So you have to go back and get the shadows. And it seems monotonous and pointless, but it really isn't pointless because if you look at the bottom half of his face compared to the top half there where I haven't gone back over the shadows, you can see a definite difference. And now something I haven't done in a while is the highlights again. I am going to go over absolutely everything with this spring green, blending everything together and coloring in the highlights to make them more green, because right now they just look white. I've lost the highlight that I originally did. And when you're doing this, you want to try and make sure, like when you're coloring a lighter color over darker colors, I try to blend up. So I'll do a little bit of the highlight that has nothing else on it, and then I'll go to the dark and blend it up a little bit. Otherwise, I'm going to mix everything together, and I just don't want to do that. I want to blend the shadow up a little bit, but I don't want that shadow to go into my highlight. I don't think I explained that very well, but I know what I mean. This spring green, it kind of makes him look like Shrek. I didn't want him to be too friendly looking, so I'm happy with it as a highlight, but I don't want a great deal of it. So I've pretty much got the where I want the shadows and where I want the highlights pretty much figured out. I will darken things a little bit more as I go along, but the whole process of doing everything lightly is to figure out if it looks good and if I want it there. And now that I'm relatively happy, I'll only make some small adjustments to suit my desire at the time that I was coloring. But yeah, that's the whole reason why I go ahead and do so many layers at the beginning and light layers, just to see if I like it. Because if I just go straight in guns a-blazing, it's I could mess up and do really heavy dark when I don't want it there. And now onto his eye. I wanted his eye to be green because he's an ogre, and I don't know, maybe he has liver problems. No, that's orange, isn't it? Maybe he has kidney problems. I don't know. But I wanted his eyes to be green. So the whole base of it's going to be spring green, and then if you look at eyes, you will see usually they are darker on the outside, and they'll have some lines going in, some different colored lines. And under the eyelid is also it always has a shadow on the eyeball as well. And back to the spring green to blend that darkness that I just colored in. So you can see that I start on the outside of the eye where the dark is, and I blend it in to make it jagged, the lines jagged. And just back to the dark sap green again to get some shadows back into the eye and around the eye, because as I said before, eyes are very dark usually. And around the, is it the pupil? The iris. The iris. The colored part of your eye. Around the iris is dark, and I want to get the dark in, but I also want to have some light glowing, and I also want to have lines. So that is my goal with the eye. I don't ask for much, do I? And a good highlight to have with certain greens is yellow. So that is why I'm using yellow. I just wanted a couple of different colors in the eye, and the more colors you add, the better things look, generally. So I'm just going through and doing the exact same thing what I did before. I'm coloring the outside of the eye, and I'm also flicking some lines in. I don't want, I don't want lines like parallel lines. I want them to be irregular. And onto the black, which is an essential in an eye usually. So the very, very outside line, I want black going over the sap green. And usual me, I get distracted. Even though I was doing the eye, I then realize, oh, hang on, I haven't done this, I haven't done that. So I'll go through, and now I'm just going to try and darken the darkest shadows to give him some real definition, some oomph. I'm not pushing very hard on here. I don't want to commit to the black just yet. I mean, I can get rid of it. It's pretty easy to get rid of most of the time, but I don't want it, burnished in there and really dark. I want to just slowly work up to the darkness. Now this is where you have to be careful using the spring green after you've used the black. If you go over the black with the spring green, you will smudge black everywhere. So as you can see, I am just going over the highlights because I don't want black everywhere. And now his tusks, or whatever they are, I don't know. Maybe it's a really bad impacted tooth, or some outgrown tooth, ingrown tooth. I don't know. I'm calling them tusks. I want them to be, white, but in order to get them white, I have to color them grey, if that makes sense. So I just go through using all of the cool grey, not all of them, but some of the cool greys here to get the color and the shadows. And I hold my fingers up when I'm using cool grey because when I'm using any of the greys in Prismacolor, because I've learned when I watch it back, I cannot see the number because I've rubbed off some of the numbers. So I've just learned it's easier for me to hold my fingers up so that when I'm doing the editing, I'll know what it is that I've got. So that is why the fingers are there. I do apologize, but that is the best way that I could figure out to do the greys. So the shadow on these tusks are going to be where it comes out of the mouth and on the right hand side, and generally on the back as well, because the light isn't going to be hitting it as much, but it's going to be more on the right hand side and down the bottom there. And now back onto the eye, which is this the sclera? The white part of the eye. The white part. Let's not get all biological on people. The white part of the eye is usually not white, the white part. White is the highlight, the reflection that you get from the moisture in your eyeball, if you have moisture in your eyeball. I currently don't because it is, there's something in the air that's really making my hay fever go bad and my eyes are on fire and I can't take any pills to get rid of it, and it's driving me insane and it feels like there's sand in my eye. Anyway. I originally did his lips in this pale pink and brown kind of color, and then when I looked at him when I was done, I thought, no, that just looks like, well, when I had no hair and I tried putting lipstick on, it looked like a pig with lipstick. And yeah, I decided to do his lips green to match his face because it looked pretty, you would definitely notice his lips. He looked like he was ready to kiss you. So yeah, that is why it looks like it's got a bit of color on it. It did. I erased it another example that you can fix up most mistakes. I'm using moss green because I wanted his lips to have a little bit of a different color than his face did, because lips tend to be a little bit darker than your face, I think. I don't know, I'm guessing. The faces I looked at, the lips tend to be a little bit darker, so I wanted them to have just a little bit of a different color in them so they stood out a little bit and didn't like disappear. And in general, the gap between your two lips is usually black. It's usually a really dark shadow. Lips usually have set shadows. You know, it depends on the light, but let's just say in general, the shadow of lips, the top lip will have a shadow on the very bottom part of it where your lips meet, and the bottom lip will have a shadow more so onto the where it gets towards your chin, or the bit before your chin. I don't know. And then it will have other bits of shadows, but they will be the darker shadows that lips have. Now on this, with this electric, it's not electric, it's not electric. I say electric, it's not electric, it's battery. With this battery eraser, I have the really small eraser head in there. So this one came with really teeny tiny ones, and I found it really handy with this ochre to use the really teeny tiny ones. And lips have cracks in them. You think you don't have cracks in them, but just about all of us have cracks in our lips, and not like deep cracks, just ridges or whatever. And with ridges comes a little bit of a highlight, so that's why I use the eraser to create the highlights, and now I'm using the dark sap green to create some more shadows and some lines in the lips. And because I want a lot of character in his face, I decided to do some dots on his face. You know, everybody has little dots and things like that on his face, so I figured ogres do too. So I use this dark sap green to make just little circles all over his face. I just want him to have a lot of character, to have a lot of spots, a lot of blemishes and things like that. So yeah. and going back in with the black to get the darkest shadows back in there. And like I usually do, I'll go over the black with whatever color it is that the rest of it is. So the other dark color, otherwise when I blend it together again, I'm going to get black everywhere. And now onto the background, which, like I said, was just white noise to me. This is burnt ochre. I do this for the whole of there's a big, like a vine thingy. I could have done it green, but I decided to do it brown. And when doing branches and things like that, I don't color it in smooth. I try to leave it rough because wood and that is rough. You see lines, you see cracks, you see creases. So I don't generally tend to blend branches or trees colors together. And now we have dark umber for the shadows on all the branches and for the lines that some of the trees, some trees have, and this has some lines put into it already by Kerby, so I just followed the lines that he put in there. The shadows will be on the right hand side generally and under branches that are curving and things like that. You just have to look and think. Sometimes I get confused and mess it up, but most of the time I think I do all right. And now onto the many, many leaves that are on that branch. The base of the leaves is going to be Luminance Spring Green. Just colour them all in, medium pressure. Now it really irks me that I know for a fact that most leaves, the lines that they have in the middle, they're actually lighter than the leaf itself, but most, colouring artists draw the black lines in themselves, and so it makes it really difficult to make the lines lighter than the leaf. So sometimes I just give in and do what the person has drawn. So this one here, I decided to draw the lines in the dark sap green, and the shadows on the leaves and around the edges is going to be also in dark sap green. Just going through with some black to get the darkest of the shadows on the leaves. And then what do I do when I use black? I go back over it with the darkest color that I used in the color. So that would be sap green, dark sap green. So with this small attachment on the battery eraser, I got it right that time, I use it to make dots on the leaves, because leaves tend to have a lot of dots and lines and things like that, and I just like to add dots and things like that just to give it a little bit of different texture. and onto terracotta to create, just to put some dots onto the leaves to give it more texture, to be honest, just texture. The cauldron or pot or whatever it is, I wanted them to be cast iron and cast iron black. I don't know if all cast iron is black, but yeah, I wanted it to be like cast iron. So I start with greys. I'm not using firm pressure with this black yet because I want to give this cauldron thingy texture, so I don't want it so heavy and thick that I can't add texture by erasing and doing whatever it is that I need to do. And so now I come along with the eraser to create the dots that I want to give the texture in the pot, cauldron, black, kettle, black, pot calling the kettle black. It's a cauldron. And the 10% cool grey to blend it all together. And you're probably thinking, you just erased part of that. Now you're going over it again. Yes, because I erase it and then I go over it. And even when I go over it, the bits that I erased are lighter than the other bits. So it's still there, if you know what I mean. And now I want to darken the shadows now that I'm kind of getting an idea of how I want it to look. So darkening up the shadows. and I grab the eraser again and make some more dots, and these dots will be lighter than the dots I did before, so it kind of makes a layer of dots which are different lightnesses. Is that a word? Lightnesses. And now, because in my mind cast iron is very textured, so it's going to have a lot of like black dots. So along with the white dots that I've done, I'm also going to add black dots. And just going to do the exact same on this other cast iron pot. And now on to the fun task of deciphering what everything is in the background, and if I can't figure it out, I just make it up. So these are more leaves up here, so more spring green and then sap green, dark sap green. The main thing about this is that you just need to remember where the shadows are, and when you use black, go easy on the black. Don't go all out and gung-ho, just be easy. Onto the axe head, which I wanted to be kind of stone-like, so that's why I choose grey. Now, while I was colouring this, I knew there was another axe, and then I looked and I couldn't find the other axe, so I don't do the axes together because my hand was covering the axe, the other axe, and yeah, I didn't see it. You know, I could have moved my hand, but yeah, I didn't. I haven't finished the axe. I do go back and do some more on the axe, but I haven't finished it yet. I got distracted. And onto the pumpkins. I actually really like doing pumpkins. They have so much texture, and I like doing pumpkins. So the base of this one is going to be orange, and then you want a darker orange, which with luminance I'll use cornelian. I think that's how you say it, and that's how I say it anyway. Sounds like an elephant's name. Cornelian. Cornelius. Wasn't that in Babar? I used to watch Babar. I swear there was a Cornelius in Babar. There was. I know there was. Yep, there was. I found him. Here he is. I used to love Baba, and I used to love Fraggle Rock and that dinosaur show where the baby dinosaur was like, not the mama, not the mama. I used to love that too. Although you look back now and you think, how did I watch that? But yeah, I used to like them. Anyway, this first layer is going to be light. You don't want to do heavy pressure to begin with, as usual. There are some oh, I can't think of the word. Some things that you do start off heavy with, but most things you start off with the lightest color and the lightest pressure. And here is the cornelian. This is going to be in the shadows and the creases of the pumpkin. And with this one I begin with medium pressure because the background is the background to me, and it's not as important to me in this picture. Like some pictures the background is important, this picture it's not that important, so I don't need to do 100 layers on the pumpkin. And because it's just a background pumpkin, I don't need to work my way up to the shadow. Like I would probably use a sienna brown or something before I use this dark umber, but because it's just a small insignificant pumpkin, I'm just going to go straight to the dark umber, and that's going to go around the little dots that it has on there in the shadows and inside in the creases at the top of the pumpkin where it goes down, where the stem comes out. And I figure in the pots he's making pumpkin soup, which is actually quite yummy. So that's why I decided to colour it orange, because it's pumpkin soup. Just going through, getting the shadows, going over it a number of times, and then eventually I will go over and put the orange back in, because when in the process of adding the shadows, I've lost the orange that I initially had. I don't know how that works, but it always happens. And onto his shirt. Now I had a time figuring out what color shirt to do him. I kind of wanted it to be black, but then I thought, no, I'll do something different. So I decided on a burgundy. Now, obviously, I start off with this crimson red, but I wanted it to be a red, but not a like a clown red. So the crimson red is going to be the highlights. And as you can see, I've got the pencil on the side and I'm just doing very, very light pressure. And now with this gorgeous black raspberry, it is actually a really nice color to try and start to burgundy up the red. And this is going to be the mid-tone. And I've still got the pencil on the side, so I'm still doing relatively light pressure. But see how just adding this black raspberry has turned the red into more of a purpley red, which was what I wanted, obviously. And next I will go on to the dark purple to get into the deepest shadows. So the shadows are going to be where the shirt meets the neck, the under the chin, you know what I mean, the neck chin bit, and where the hair is and where the creases are, and it'll be more shadowed on the right than it will on the top. It's all very complicated. And crimson red to get the highlights back in and to give it a little bit of color again, because I've added the darks and now I've lost the color of the light. And it is still relatively light pressure. And I decided to add some black grape just to see if it works as well to darken it and to turn it more burgundy. And I was relatively happy with it, and so I decided to put it in the shadows as well, using medium pressure. Black raspberry again to get the mid-tony colors on there and to burgundy it up again. And I decided to add some dark indigo because this dark indigo is really dark and it could take the place of black, or not quite, but it's very dark. But I also wanted to cool this shirt up a little bit because he's pretty cool and I wanted his shirt to be pretty cool. And when I say cool, I don't mean like, oh, you're so cool. I mean cool colors, like not warm, whereas red is warm. So I wanted to cool the shirt up a little bit. Another light layer of crimson red. Just building the layers up on this shirt because, well, that's what I do. So just layer after layer after layer. And usually after every layer, I'll stop and have a look and see if I like it, see if I need to make the shadows bigger or smaller and things like that. So that's why sometimes I will increase the shadows because I think it needs to be done. Now, no, I didn't just get this cotton earbud and stick it in my ear and then rub it all over. That's not what I did. When I use graphite, I use the cotton earbuds to blend things together, and so sometimes I just use it on colored pencil to blend them together slightly instead of using a colorless blender, which tends to leave a waxy residue on top. I'll use a tissue as well, or a blending stump. I was just lazy and I saw the cotton earbuds on my desk already and decided to use them. I suppose if people come into my room and see all these cotton earbuds on my desk, they probably think I'm a bit of a weirdo. I like to have a good old pick at things while I'm coloring, but it's not true. They're actually really good with blending. As you can see, it works here and there's no waxy residue, and it doesn't take a great deal of the color off either. And yellow ochre on his little wart thingies because I wanted them to be a little bit lighter than his skin. And some Luminance olive brown, 50%, just for the shadows there. It doesn't really matter that much for the shadows on the warts. It doesn't really matter a great deal because the warts are small and you can't really see the shadows that much. So then I decide to use dark sap green. Now a dark sap green for the shadows that you can see on the warts, and for around the whole circle thingy I just decided I wanted them to stand out just a little bit. And then I will get the white gel pen and put a reflection dot on all of the warts because he has moist warts and moist things tend to have a reflection. I hate that word. I hate that word. Wet things tend to have a reflection. Wet is just as bad as moist. Whatever. You know what I mean. Putting the reflection dots onto the warts more towards the left hand side of the wart than anywhere else, but it is very difficult to do when they're so small. And the hair, what color do you do hair? I did consider green, but I decided to go with black, and so I start with a base of the greys just to get, because the greys will be the highlights. So yeah, I decided to go with black. To start with, this is light pressure and I'm just colouring it in. I'm not doing any strokes or anything like any, individual strokes or anything like that. For hairs, I'm just getting the base colour in. Now working up to these shadows on the hair, I've got some Paynes Grey 60%, and this will be for the mid-tone bits on the hair. Kerby has already put in a fair bit of the shadows for you, so just follow that. So because this video was so long, it took me forever to finish this page, I have had to decide to split this up into two. So the next color along with me will be part 2 of this page, and it will be up, it should be up the same day as this one. It's just my computer was having a lot of trouble dealing with the size of the video, so I had to split it. So stay creative and stay colorful, and I'll see you next time. Bye. And this is it.